really want to talk about the way that we think about ASO from an e-commerce merchandising standpoint, which I don't think a lot of people approach in that way in this industry yet. And also all the things that Apple and Google are doing to really highlight the way their stores are really becoming more e-commerce vehicles, the way they're merchandising apps, the way things are moving around, the new features they're introducing, and how to take advantage of those features. So first, I just want to start out by saying, I hate the analogy ASO is SEO for apps. That's a lie. It's not true. E-commerce optimization has nothing to do with web optimization. It's so different. And so a lot of tools that are out there, when they approach it like a keyword planner, when they approach it like you're building an SEM campaign on Google AdWords, absolutely make no sense in terms of what Apple and Google are actually doing when you update your pages and launch. We think of this a lot like a retail store, right? In a retail store, you have aisles, you have end caps, you have bins where promotional content goes. And this is really no different than search results or featured spotlights where Apple and Google feature you, or the central bins where you have ads and promotions that are not necessarily super intent driven, but they're there and they might catch some additional clicks and eyeballs. But this is the way that we view the App Store. We do not view it like web search, and we don't think that you should either. And as with many things, the most valuable users are the ones that have the most intent. To us, if I'm using a retail analogy again, these are the ones on the edges of the aisles, right? Where you have someone looking for something specifically. Many search queries are not brand search queries, so people looking for features or functions, they haven't already made the decision about what they're going to download. And that's where you need your apps, because that's where the most valuable users actually come from. When we think about what the app stores do, a lot of people talk about the algorithms, a lot of people talk about search algorithms, things like this. We don't refer to it as a search algorithm. We refer to it as a merchandising algorithm because, in reality, what this algorithm is doing is it's grabbing your impression data, it's grabbing your click and tap data, it's looking at your search conversion rates, your browse and explore conversion rates, your aggregate conversion, any specific ad performance, and it's using all of those metrics to create a relevance score for your app compared to your competitors, which will ultimately make it more or less difficult to get ranked and merchandised in the store in various places. They're even grouping people together as audiences. So if you do really well across an audience, your relevance is going to go up across all of the keywords related to that audience. So really, it's important to think of this like you're merchandising or like you're optimizing for Amazon.com, not necessarily like you're doing this from a web SEO perspective. We think of metadata like a suggestion. We want Apple and Google to get their learning going, right? Get their engines running. And so when we update metadata in the store, yes, we're doing some specific targeting, but what we recognize Apple and Google are really doing is crawling that metadata to understand the context of your app. They're doing some experimentation based on what you target to understand what your conversion rates look like, and then you're getting placements throughout the store. Yes, it starts with what you target, but it does not end with what you target. So this idea of simply tracking keywords based on what you have plugged into your metadata really only gives you a small snapshot of what is actually going on in the store after you make these updates. So we really think it's time to move on from the past, right? We don't understand why modern ASOs would accept tools that really only comes from the ads in the center aisle of the store. You're looking for data from search. You're looking for data around how is Apple and Google merchandising my app so I can make better decisions. And ASO, what you're doing organically, while there might be some overlaps with Apple search ads, is not the same as running an Apple search ads campaign. And this idea of looking at search ads data and making all your organic decisions based on that, or using that as a derivative for how many downloads I get, makes absolutely no sense to us. It is not the same thing. When you think of relevance, this is actually the word that Apple and Google use on their websites. They do not use the word difficulty. The reason they don't use the word difficulty is because your difficulty is different for every app. And it's different based on your conversion rate versus your competitors and how those conversion rates are compared across audiences in the store at the end of the day. So what we want our customers to think about is how do you optimize your relevancy across the audiences you care about? And whenever you're looking at a tool or talking to an agency and they're saying, oh, I have a difficulty score for you, always check to see if that difficulty score registers as the same number for a different app. Because if it does, you're basically making a decision based on a metric where if you were a cookbook, you would have the same difficulty ranking for a gaming app as an actual game would. That makes no sense. The other thing is personalization, customization is getting really big and really important in the stores. Custom product pages, custom store listings, right? Prove that Apple and Google are thinking about this like an e-commerce engine. And they prove that Apple and Google value that personalization because people convert better when you use these tools. So what are we doing about this? And the rest of my talk is really going to dive into this because, frankly, Apple obviously has custom product pages, but Google has made some pretty significant advances around custom store listings that I think everyone should really know about and take advantage of because they're really going to become the future. So the future success in the App Store, it's not just about optimizing one page. It's about understanding what you're doing with your CPP and custom store listing strategy as well. Now, I want to specifically go into Google really quick, right? There are a lot of things that you can do with CSLs. They're not necessarily new. A lot of people have heard of them already. Obviously, you can group languages with territories. You can fine-tune your external and paid traffic, change content-based user state. But now what Google is allowing you to do is they're allowing you to associate specific keywords in their console with a particular custom store listing. And when you do that, and people are searching for those keywords, you're going to have the customized page come up. Now, if Google and Apple value conversion rates and people are doing this en masse, people who have more relevant landing pages are going to convert better, right? And so anyone doing this is going to have incrementally better results and even probably more than incremental over time as more people roll this out. Now, within Google's console, they have this feature called search keywords, and that feature kind of relates to what's going on with custom store listings. Essentially, Google is reporting some keywords that users come from when they're searching in the store and how they land in your store listing. It's important to remember a couple things. This is Google saying, here's where users come from, not here's where the opportunity is, right? There could be a lot of opportunity out there that Google puts in this other bucket where up to 80% of your keywords could end up and it never gets disclosed where those users come from. And where the most of your traffic comes from, that frankly is really what you've already targeted. It's not saying there's not opportunity anywhere else, right? It's not a foregone conclusion. So that's what Google considers search keywords. It's like your top 10 or 20% of keywords where you currently get traffic. And it ties into CSLs in some ways. And this is obviously different than custom product pages. You know, an Apple custom product page, you know, you're updating visuals, you're doing some things, but Google gets a lot deeper in terms of what you can actually customize, right? Around your full descriptions, your icons, your feature graphics, kind of all of these things that are important from an ASO perspective. Now, I want to talk a little bit about organic and how this ties into organic, right? Within a custom store listing, you have these search keywords, and you can select one or more of them if they're available inside the Google console. Up to 500 can be used. Keywords have to be at least 35 characters. But you know, users who organically search these terms are going to see whatever you set up there. Now, can you imagine if you're a news app and you have one landing page, but your competitor station in the same market has a landing page for local, for politics, right? For home and garden, right? The people that land on those pages specifically and see what they're looking for are obviously going to convert better. So when you're thinking about retail, when you're thinking about entertainment, any app that has a category or different features, this is going to be incredibly important. And ASO is really going to have to tie into this because whereas custom store listings and product pages before might have been a search ads activity, or maybe it was an activity for the growth managers on the paid side, it's going to be more and more impacting the ASO side now, particularly on Google Play. It's almost inevitable at some point Apple's going to follow along and do something similar. Now, it's important to keep in mind, when you're setting these up, keywords can't be entered manually. You're limited to the keywords where you already get traffic from. And that's why I mentioned earlier, when you look at kind of Google's search page in the console, they're going to present you some keywords that you could potentially select from. But I want you to think about that completely separately from what you might target in the future for ASO, right? Keep in mind, those keywords are where you get traffic today. That's not necessarily telling you where you should get more traffic from in the future from a growth standpoint. You want more keywords to populate there over time, not just focus on what's already there. So look at your ASO instinct about what you target and where the value is, and look at it from a perspective of here's what I'm doing for custom store listings, and my goal is to rank more so I can have more custom store listings across all the different things that I'm doing inside my app. Now, the data doesn't tell you a lot. It doesn't tell you, for example, impressions, right? Google is not disclosing how many impressions or what the volume necessarily is for these keywords. Apple and Google don't do that. One of the misnomers in our industry is a lot of these keyword tools have this concept of volume, or maybe they're a little bit more transparent and use this word called popularity. What that means is they're giving you Apple Search Ads popularity scores, and they're telling you to use this for organic, which again doesn't make a lot of sense to us, but that's what it is, right? Go to a web marketer who's done SEO or done paid marketing on the web for 10 or 20 years. They'll tell you SEM and SEO, different things. There's some similarities, but not necessarily the same metrics. So just be aware of that, right? And be aware that Google and Apple do not provide that information to any third party. So anyone who says they have it, it's not coming from the source. So just keep those things in mind as you look at this data. Also, and I can't emphasize this enough, we have this great imagery from our creative department here, but look, at the end of the day, if you're focusing on CSLs, build for what you have. If you're focusing on growth for ASO, strategize around what you're not seeing. Google's not showing you the opportunity, they're showing you where things are today. So use ASO software that can suggest keywords to you. Understand what keywords are related to each other. Understand who your audiences are for each one of your features. And know that as you optimize, as you update, ideally every month, right? You're getting Apple and Google to merchandise you in more and more places. And you're not just going to lose keywords because you're changing what you're doing. If you convert really well, you'll probably stay there for a while. In terms of best practices for us, we always like to think about how to build out CSLs in terms of features, right? In terms of competitors, and then perhaps in terms of your brand and whatever your brand strategy is. For example, retailers often have a lot of tentpole things going on in their stores or going on from a perspective of what's on their e-commerce website. Well, you can have custom store listings tied to that drive from your website that now today could be different from what you have on your main store listing to convert organic users, which is really important. So if I'm here's an example, a photo app, edit photos, would be one idea, right? Cloud photos, where I store my content, might be another idea. And then separately, you have competitors and brands and things like that. So we know that these things have an ASO impact. We know how Google indexes your store listing. And by nature of targeting keywords on your custom store listings, that means Google is looking at these too, right? But they're looking at them specifically for relevance around the keywords and metadata that you're targeting. So now, you have to look at these custom store listings, not just from a conversion standpoint, but also from a standpoint of how is Google going to crawl this? Is the copy written correctly? Am I targeting the right keywords? How am I narrowing in on what I really care about? A lot of people, when they kind of saw custom store listings, saw this happening, took what they were doing from Apple, applied it to Google. That's not really what you want to do, because Google is going to be looking at the metadata and crawling the descriptions. So it's important to keep all of that in mind, right? And when we think about generally search term CSLs and organic ranking, make sure you align that entire experience with what you're targeting, right? If you care about cloud photos and your value proposition is storage, that needs to carry through to what you're writing, what you're targeting, your screenshots, everything. Basic App Store Optimization 101, but now it's going to apply to multiple pages, which is really important. Now, we think that the adopters of custom store listings are going to win on Google Play. We think this is important. And again, we think it's inevitable as Apple evolves. For many years, they didn't have A/B testing. Now they do. It was important. Developers needed it. This is going to work, so this is probably where they're going as well. But people are going to win when they do this, right? And we have a lot of great case studies for this. We work with a lot of apps across every category in the App Store, everything from retailers to information apps to entertainment apps to games. There's no category we haven't touched. But one of the most obvious examples that I wanted to share is, we have a casino app, and the casino app had bingo functionality. And we launched a custom store listing with an icon that actually featured bingo balls, and the conversion rate increased nearly 36%, right? Even though casino was a broad concept, it was really worth it financially from a metric standpoint to get the custom store listing and to get the custom creative out there. When we looked at things like feature graphics, right? Same thing happened, almost a 14% lift with this variant on a custom store listing. So it's really valuable to do this. And we're seeing this across every industry, right? Real estate is a notoriously hard business to get conversion improvements in, right? There are a few big players there. We started experimenting very early with one of our customers who's a top 2, top 3 in this category. And we got 12.5% conversion improvement when we started applying these customizations and we started customizing where the traffic was going on CSLs, which was a huge deal for them. Another example here, just when we look at screenshots, right? We were experimenting almost a 12% conversion increase. So if Apple and Google are thinking about conversion as a metric for how it is more difficult for you to rank compared to your competitors, and for ultimately how well you rank. And I'm not talking about your store listing conversion only, I'm also talking about how you convert in search, how you convert in Browser Explorer separately. These become really important. Instead of buying more search ads or paying more to buy more search ads, make a custom store listing and let's actually improve conversion so we solve the foundation of the problem, and then maybe we still run some ads, but maybe we buy less of them because we don't need as much, right, in order to help and boost what we're doing on the ASO side. This is the future. And this is what we're building with our customers today for every one of their product features. And I bet within the next 18 months, we're going to be doing the same thing for Apple as well. So, summary, right? Just a few things, right? Never forget that Apple and Google, these are stores, right? This is not the web. This is not SEO for apps. If I could go on the internet and erase everywhere someone used that analogy, I would every time I see it. It angers me, but it's okay. I try to get over it quickly. But just remember, e-commerce optimization is different than web optimization. Like if you're really familiar with web and okay, I have a product on Amazon, how does their algorithm work versus I have a product or a website? These two algorithms are really different. They're looking for different things, right? Data from paid search, again, it's not something we ignore. I find popularity very interesting. I find share of voice very interesting. I find all of these search ads data points very interesting. But driving an ASO strategy from paid data is simply, thinking about the stock market analogy, right? It's like building a 401k for your long-term health financially, but using data from day traders. It does not make sense, right? There are other factors you have to consider. And we do believe customization is the future, right? Leveraging CPPs, leveraging CSLs, it's going to be more work, right? But the problem is once your competitors start doing that and have the resources to do that, whether it's internally or externally, they're going to start performing better, and it's going to cost way more to maintain what you have if you're not doing this. And of course, make decisions on search strategy based on growth opportunities. And I've said this like 5 times, but the reason I've said it is because almost every week I have a customer come to us saying, oh, but Google tells us what keywords we're getting traffic from. Well, yeah, that's where you're getting traffic from, but do you want to grow, right? That's pretty important. So just separate those things and understand that what you're doing for CSLs, again, the keywords that you can target, that's where you are today, but there's still where you want to be tomorrow. That's growth, and that's why you work with great ASO companies or have great tools and use them internally and try to grow. So it was great chatting with you. Again, really happy to have you here all in San Francisco. This is our home, so we're super happy to be here and chat. Our team is outside. Happy to do any QA, live audit breakdowns, whatever you guys need, and chat more. Thanks, Hannah.